Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we take a closer look at the reign of Tsar Nicholas II. He was the last Romanov ruler, the one who oversaw the fall of an entire empire. And, some might say he kind of helped clear the runway for the Russian Revolution.
Absolutely. His time on the throne, it's just marked by missteps, misfortune, and, well, more than a little stubbornness.
Yeah, think of it as history's cautionary tale in poor leadership, maybe.
Definitely a case study there.
Luckily, here at the podcast, we've got better management. Big thanks to our producer, FireflyHaku, who keeps this show running far smoother than Nicholas kept Russia. So our mission today is really to unpack the story of Nicholas II. We're asking, was he just a product of impossible circumstances, swept away by history?
Or was he truly his own worst enemy? What's really insightful here isn't just that he made poor choices, but how his specific brand of autocracy worked. It was this mix of personal timidity, this deep religious belief in his divine right, and just unyielding dogmatism. And that created a unique vulnerability within the empire. We'll explore if this was like a tragic flaw in his character, or maybe he was just ill-equipped for a modernizing world.
And how those individual traits connect to these huge historical events.
Exactly.
Okay, so looking at the start of his reign, it's clear he was thrown into the deep end, wasn't he?
Completely. He inherited the throne in 1894 after his father's sudden death.
And there's that famous quote, him turning to his brother-in-law basically saying,
"What am I going to do? What is going to happen to Russia? I'm not ready to be Tsar. I never wanted to become one."
Wow, that's some serious reluctance. Especially when you contrast it with his public stance on power.
Right. Europe is moving towards, constitutional monarchies, democratic reforms.
And Nicholas just doubles down on absolutism.
He does. While other nations were gradually expanding suffrage, giving more people a voice, Nicholas just declared, "I will devote all my strength to maintain the principle of absolute autocracy."
So the good of the whole nation, supposedly.
Supposedly. But this stubborn adherence right from the start. You have to ask, was this a fatal flaw that doomed him from day one?
It certainly alienated him, didn't it? From people desperate for more rights, more representation.
A fundamental disconnect. And it only got deeper over time.
And it wasn't just politics, was it? The sources really paint this picture of astonishing levels of inequality.
Oh, absolutely. A huge contrast. You've got the vast majority peasants working the land with old techniques, struggling with famine sometimes.
While the nobility are living in gratuitous extravagance. I mean, that anecdote about lifting the roof for palm trees during massive dinners.
Dinners for 600 people in a
Right.
winter garden. It just shows this almost absurd disconnect from reality, doesn't it?
While most Russians were struggling just to eat.
And this huge gap, it makes you question leadership and empathy, or the lack of it. Millions weren't just poor, they were enduring truly terrible conditions, especially in the factories.
Right? The industrial workers.
Working up to 18 hours a day, sharing overcrowded rooms, sometimes sleeping on the factory floors because of insects in the summer.
Just awful.
It suggests a real failure by the leadership to even see, let alone address, these basic grievances.
And even when they tried reforms, like factory inspections or that 11.5-hour workday law.
They were half-hearted at best and quickly undermined by corruption, right? Business owners just used connections to get rid of inspectors they didn't like.
So the system was rigged against the workers.
Pretty much. Shows how disconnected the Tsar's circle was from the real struggle.
And that kind of resentment. Well, it couldn't stay buried forever, could it?
No. It boiled over in 1905.
Started with steelworker strikes in the capital.
Which escalated dramatically. Over 100,000 men from 400 factories. It basically shut the city down.
And then tens of thousands marched peacefully to the Winter Palace, right? Carrying icons, wanting to present a petition.
They weren't asking for revolution, not then. Just better conditions, fair wages, basic political rights, things we take for granted.
But the outcome?
Tragic. Bloody Sunday. Panicked troops fired on the unarmed crowd, hundreds killed, thousands wounded.
And Nicholas wasn't even in the city.
Nope, he'd left for his country estate. But his reaction afterwards, his handling of it, disastrous.
His usual reluctance to concede anything meaningful.
Exactly. Only offering a parliament with a purely advisory role months later. It just fanned the flames.
So that one event sparked a revolution across the empire.
Pretty much. Half the workers in European Russia went on strike. The press started openly criticizing the regime, ignoring censorship. It just shattered that centuries-old bond, that myth of the Tsar as the caring father of his people.
And as if all that internal chaos wasn't enough, Russia was losing a war. Badly.
Yeah, the Russo-Japanese War. And Nicholas's personal arrogance played a huge role there.
He viewed the Japanese as inferior, didn't he? Because they were Asian.
Called them monkeys, macaques. Refused diplomatic solutions, treated their statesmen with contempt for years.
Despite them trying to negotiate over territory.
Right. And the war itself, meant to be a quick win to distract people, it became a strategic nightmare.
Culminating in sending the Baltic fleet halfway around the world. That sounds insane.
It was a crazy course of action. All 42 ships, 7 months sailing around Africa, needing favors from Germany and France just to refuel.
The logistics must have been immense. Morale probably plummeted.
Absolutely. And the whole world was watching this desperate gamble.
And the result at Tsushima.
Total obliteration of the Russian fleet by a nation Nicholas had dismissed. It was a humiliating defeat.
Unprecedented, really. A European power beaten by an Asian one.
And it profoundly weakened the regime, militarily and politically, fueled the discontent back home, made the army less willing to crack down on protests.
So that combination, Bloody Sunday and the defeat by Japan, forced his hand.
It did. That confluence of internal protest and external defeat finally forced him to accept the October Manifesto in late 1905.
Granting the Duma, the parliament, and basic civil rights, freedom of speech, religion.
But he resisted it bitterly. Said he felt sick with shame to betray his dynasty by sharing power.
It really shows that internal conflict, doesn't it? This divine duty versus the reality on the ground.
A man forced to compromise against his deepest beliefs.
So, okay, he's forced to accept this parliament, the Duma, but his attitude towards it wasn't exactly cooperative, was it?
Not at all. He saw it as an unfortunate necessity, not a real partner.
The first Duma meets in 1906, proposes radical reforms like land redistribution.
And Nicholas is horrified, sees it as an attack on his power, so he dissolves it after just 73 days.
Reportedly shouting, "Curse the Duma!"
Right. Then the second Duma gets elected, even more radical. He dissolves that one too, after about 100 days.
So just a pattern of my way or the highway.
Pretty much. Which makes you think about the missed opportunities, doesn't it?
Definitely.
He eventually changed the voting rules to get a more conservative, compliant third Duma that lasted its term, but his complete unwillingness to share power, constantly undermining popular representation, it just alienated him more.
If he'd actually worked with them, maybe things could have been different.
You have to wonder, maybe land reform could have been managed better, industrial policies improved. It could have diffused some of that deep resentment.
But he slammed that window shut.
Seems like it. His inflexibility, his inability to trust any kind of popular input just made the regime more brittle.
Which brings us to, well, arguably the biggest mistake of all, getting Russia into World War I.
Oh, absolutely. A crucial turning point, and just tragically misguided.
The accounts show Russia was catastrophically unprepared.
Totally unprepared. Soldiers lacking basic gear, rifles, ammunition.
Stories of one rifle for every 2 men having to wait for someone to fall.
Exactly. And the military-industrial complex was underdeveloped, mostly state-owned factories that couldn't keep up.
And hostile to private enterprise, which stifled innovation when they needed it most.
And the leadership, just
Yeah.
sheer incompetence exemplified by the war minister, Romanov.
The guy who boasted he hadn't read a military manual in 25 years.
That's the one. And Nicholas kept people like him around based on personal loyalty, not competence.
Even when their failures were obvious, Sokolmonov was later tried for treason, wasn't he?
He was accused of deliberately hindering the war effort. It shows a systemic problem. Loyalty trumped capability. Catastrophic decision-making at the top.
And Nicholas's own role in pushing things towards war seems pretty undeniable, too.
Yes. Russia's aggressive backing of Serbia after the assassination, giving Austria-Hungary no sympathy, that was provocative.
Claiming Serbia wasn't involved, even though they knew better.
And those inflammatory newspaper headlines like, "We are ready, France must be ready too," painting this picture of a Russia eager for a fight.
But the key thing was the mobilization, right? Russia mobilized first.
The first major nation to go into general mobilization, the German Kaiser practically begged Nicholas not to, sent telegrams, then an ultimatum.
Nicholas ignored them both, knowingly chose war, even urged the Serbs to fight like lions.
Which, from his own perspective, you'd think would seem like absolute madness.
Yeah, Russia was still recovering from 1905, the defeat by Japan.
Exactly, taking on Germany. A modern industrial power. It was a huge risk he should have avoided, knowing Russia's weaknesses.
And then, a year into the war, he decides to make himself supreme commander.
despite having zero direct military experience and facing almost unanimous cabinet opposition. Another critical error.
Because then every military failure, every casualty, it landed directly on him.
He became the face of Russia's defeat. No more blaming generals.
And that decision left a power vacuum back in the capital.
Filled by his German-born wife, Tsarina Alexandra, who was already deeply unpopular.
Her German background made people suspicious, thinking she wanted Germany to win.
And her reliance on Rasputin, that was just disastrous for the family's reputation.
Grigory Rasputin.
Yeah.
The mystic, the faith healer, with a terrible reputation. People thought he was a rapist or had cast a spell on her.
Because he seemed to help their son, Alexis, hemophilia. But the whispers of an affair, it just eroded public trust completely, painted the Tsar as weak, incompetent.
And she even fired a competent war minister, Polivanov, just because he criticized Rasputin and Nicholas taking command.
Yes, Polivanov was actually turning things around, making improvements, fired over basically nothing at the worst possible time. Incredible.
So by early 1917, Russia's just at breaking point.
2.5 brutal years of war. Chronic shortages, especially bread, widespread strikes, riots in the capital again.
And Nicholas, still showing that characteristic incompetence and foolishness.
Dismissed the protests initially as just hooliganism, ignored urgent warnings from Rodzianko, the head of the Duma.
And then from afar, he dissolves the Duma again, creating a total power vacuum right when the crisis peaked.
Just unbelievable timing, and this time even the loyal Cossack troops refused orders to fire on the crowds.
They started joining the protesters.
Some did. A complete breakdown of authority. The government lost control of the capital.
So his own advisors, generals, ministers, even family members, they told me he had to go.
They pressured him to abdicate. Saw it as the only desperate last chance to restore order, maybe save the monarchy itself.
A profound betrayal, really.
Yeah.
Shows how far his legitimacy had collapsed.
Utterly.
And even the abdication itself, on March 15th, 1917, marked by incompetence.
A final tragic misstep. He abdicated in favor of his brother, Grand Duke Michael.
Without even asking him first.
Exactly. Michael, completely unprepared, refused the throne the next day.
And with that one final act of incompetence, Nicholas basically ended the dynasty. Russia suddenly becomes a republic.
Just like that, no head of state. And then he and his family lived as prisoners for about a year.
Before being executed by the Bolsheviks in July 1918, a brutal end.
It really was. Which brings us back to the assessment, doesn't it? What's the ultimate takeaway? The sources seem pretty clear. Nicholas was an incredibly inept, incompetent ruler. His downfall was, to a large degree, his own doing.
So many avoidable mistakes.
But maybe the deeper thing is how that absolute belief in his divine right blinded him, made compromise seem like failure, not strategy.
A warning about inflexible leadership in changing times.
Definitely.
So what are the wider implications? His determination to hold on to absolute power was just ill-judged, wasn't it? Especially with his poor advisors and that monumental error of getting into World War I.
Absolutely. And unlike someone like Louis XVI, who inherited a France already in deep financial crisis,
Nicholas inherited a relatively stable Russia. He didn't face impossible odds from day one.
Right. He consistently chose paths that made things worse, not better.
All he really needed to do was to not rock the boat, maybe allow Russia to gradually liberalize like Britain, France, Germany.
And definitely don't get involved in World War I.
It's such a powerful lesson in leadership, isn't it? For better, or in this case, much worse.
A stark lesson indeed.
And that brings our deep dive into the reign of Tsar Nicholas II to a close. It's a stark reminder of how leadership, or the lack of it, can truly shape the course of history. So be sure to subscribe, tell a friend, and come back for more dives into the stories that shaped our world.